afternoon, everyone. Just a reminder, the chat is disabled where you are not able to send chats through the system in there, since we do have to man that throughout the training. So anything that you need to send, you can send through the Q&A. Please go back and check the chat throughout. The handout will not show for you if you joined after it was initially uploaded into the chat. So we are periodically going through and adding that back in. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get our training started. I would like to say thank you and good afternoon to all of you for taking the time out of your day to join us for our annual Local Streets and Roads Funding Program Expenditure Report Technical Training. My name is Alicia Sequeira. I'm the Local Streets and Roads Program Manager here at the California Transportation Commission. I'm joined with Celeste Almanza and Leanne Bachan, our program analysts for the Local Streets and Roads Program, to which I am sure many of you are familiar with. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This is how you're going to navigate through for your participation and utilization of the training today. So make sure your computer audio is adequately connected. Your phone audio, should you wish to raise your hand and participate, we will then unmute you and you would have that opportunity to do so. You can also send anything that you would like to through the Q&A portion of the system, and we will be able to respond, whether it is live as I'm presenting, or we respond directly within the feature. It will be in there as well. A few other things that I want to make sure that we are doing is that we're going to go over our schedule or the technical training objectives. So just a reminder of the schedule. When are these due? What do we do? What's the overview of the program? Why do you have to submit these reports to us? How to prepare for reporting, the reporting detail that is required. We will do a navigation through CalSmart and CalSmart Live demonstration, as well as some frequently asked questions and resources. I will take periodic breaks throughout so that you can ask questions. We do ask that any nuanced specific questions regarding your specific report or a specific project be limited to within the chat or towards the end in the during the Q&A at the very end of today's training, if we have the time for that. You can also send us an email. Celeste can go ahead and put our email address in the chat for all of you to have access to if you do not already have that. And you can send us your specific questions there. We can also give you technical assistance throughout the reporting period. So for the program schedule, as a reminder, in March of 2021, we did make a permanent alteration to our program schedule, which inevitably ended up changing the due date for expenditure reporting. It took it from being due October 1 to now December 1st of every year. You do this reporting through CalSmart, just like you do for eligibility. And CalSmart is now open for some of our more seasoned members of the team who have been participating in this funding program for several years now. We usually do this training about 2 to 3 weeks from now, and CalSmart usually isn't open this early. We are opening it up early and doing the training early, in large part because we found during eligibility that there is a very large number of new hires who are participating in the program within the local entities. And so we want to make sure that we're taking the time to provide as much assistance as we can, given the fact that it's a team of 3 who help coordinate the reporting efforts of 539 jurisdictions. Quick, brief overview of the program. As you know, in order to receive these funds directly through the State Controller's Office on a monthly apportionment basis, these are formulaic funds. You have to submit a project list or proposed project list that is adopted via resolution each year to the Commission. We then adopt it, send that off to the State Controller's Office. You begin receiving your funding. As additional addition, or that was double. But in addition to all of that, as a condition of your funding that you receive, you are required to submit expenditure reporting each year to account for the funds that you've received and the projects that you've listed, and how you're intending to use the funds. And so this is all according to statute. It's also in our guidelines. So it is a requirement that this is done. Preparing for reporting. I cannot stress this enough. It really is vital that you prepare before you get into the system to start reporting. Most times what we see and where the majority of the errors and issues come is usually because somebody started the reporting prior to getting all the information that they needed for input. And then it causes a lot of confusion. Erroneous reporting gets done. A lot of duplicates are created. And so we want to make sure that it's as easy a process as possible. And so we want to help you with a few of those things. One of the things that you really want to do is that you're verifying that all reportable project expenditure data and statuses selected are based on the actual activity. So you need to gather what was the activity, project activity within the reporting fiscal year. So that would have been July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 for this particular reporting period. Were invoices paid using RMRA funds for work that was performed within those dates? So it doesn't mean that the invoices had to be paid within that time, but if it was invoiceable work that occurred within that time but may have been paid later on, you would still count that as expended funds using RMRA specifically. You want to record any project list, scope, location, or schedule changes that were made throughout the reporting fiscal year. So this is going to go for any of those projects that were proposed in 23-24 that maybe you made changes to, priorities changed, location, detail, whatever's changed, that you're capturing that. You also want to make sure that any projects that you need to continue to account for from the prior year's expenditure report, so that's 22-23, that you're updating that information as well. And so you're getting all the accurate data regarding that. So you must report on the following. And this is, these are the non-negotiables. Any local streets and roads program RMRA funds that were spent in the reporting year. And I know we say in the reporting year, but again, it's invoiceable work that RMRA funds were used to pay for that reporting year. So that means, again, if you were invoiced for work that was performed prior to July 1 of this year, and then you may have made the payment in August or September, using RMRA funds, you would need to be capturing that. If you have unspent RMRA funds by June 30th of the reporting fiscal year, you need to indicate what your jurisdiction's intent for those funds are in the coming fiscal years. This is where we see your updated schedules and project lists. So if you didn't spend anything, you should be showing us that you're intending to spend something on a future project that is outlined and provided within the expenditure report. So pretty much already covered this. You're identifying your reporting information based on the prior fiscal year and relisted in the reporting year. So again, this is this is information that you're coming based off of what did you propose? And then in expenditure reporting, what did you last put in your most recent expenditure report? Oftentimes, those of you who have also done the eligibility period, you know that you can relist a project for adoption or eligibility that you last reported on in your expenditure reporting. Many of you do it. It's probably 50% of everything that comes through every year. And so this is just saying you need to make sure that you're still accounting for these things. You also want to report on all newly proposed projects from the reporting fiscal year project list. So again, anything new that you put in the 23-24 year. And if you added anything that wasn't adopted previously, you want to go ahead and make sure that you're putting that in there as well. Any remaining RMRA funds from a prior fiscal year that were spent in the current reporting year, just make sure that you're still reporting on that. This is a common question that we're getting, which is for some reason, I'm not quite sure why we're getting it this year. But a big question that we keep getting is, do these funds sunset? Is it a use it or lose it situation? Can we have multi-year funded projects? Do you have multi-year funded projects? There is no clause in here that says the funds must be used within a year of receipt. There's nothing of the sort. We know that the amounts that you are all receiving vary greatly. And because of that, some of you have to reserve funds over multiple years in order to be able to deliver or support anything and aid in the delivery of a project. And with that in mind, that is why there is no sunsetting on or expiration to the funds once you've received them. You don't have to return them. And again, it is a formulaic program. These are apportionments you are receiving monthly. This is not a reimbursement program. And there's a big misconception for some reason this year on that as well. So the state does not reimburse you, state controller, Caltrans, none of us reimburse you. These are simply funds that are revenues accrued and then dispersed based on the formula and the eligibility. Oh, and just to clarify, the funds are dispersed from the state controller's office to the jurisdictions. On average, it occurs September to August of each year. That's just because there tends to be a delay in rectifying the funding once the revenues are collected, and then they rectify it and then disperse. So just know that there tends to be, it's roughly 6 weeks. Many of you would have received your first payment for the current fiscal year in September, which means that your last payment for the prior fiscal year occurred in August. So your expenditure activity summary, why is this detail that we require? This summary is required because number one, it's something that's really vital to us as reviewers when we're getting your reports. It lets us know what to expect as we review, what type of information you would have been putting in. If you reserved all your funds for the year, you didn't spend anything, let us know that. And then what you intend to do in the coming year and that you've identified those projects within. If you had to remove a project, call it no longer RMRA funded because the project was canceled for some reason, delayed for an undeterminate amount of time, or it's now receiving different funding source and it's not going to use RMRA. That's fine. But just kind of let us know that. So again, we have an idea what to keep an eye out for as we are going through all of your expenditure reports. It also helps us when we are creating the narrative after we've accumulated all the data and we've aggregated everything. The data tells a good story, but a lot of times we don't know the rationale behind it. So when and if spending drops, like things did during COVID-19 impact from the pandemic, where spending stopped for a number of reasons, revenues had dropped, but also the price for materials had greatly increased, labor shortages. So there were a lot of things that went into play, and being able to adequately convey that and show that, multiple jurisdictions were having the same issue, really did help to tell the story, even though, we knew it was happening around everywhere. It just further supported that fact, and it continues to do so when you provide us that type of information. So all projects proposed in the reporting fiscal year need to be accounted for in the report, and all previously reported on projects not yet completed need to be accounted for in the reports. That means anything that was previously reported as in progress, carried over, or forecasted. And we will go over this terminology as well. If the project became active within the reporting year in which RMRA funds were spent, but had not been previously reported on, nor was it proposed in that reporting fiscal year when you came in for eligibility, this is when you need to add that into the system. Again, here is a reminder of the activity timeline for the reporting, which is July 1 to June 30th of each year. And then you're going to record reporting for reporting the fiscal year armory apportionment that was received, again, between September and August, because that's the timeline, or those are the monthly increments in which it appears per the state controller's website that the funds were dispersed to all of you. And I will go ahead and take you to that website right now, just to make sure that all of you know where you can find it. There we go. So here's the state controller's website. You want to select state and local. Here to local government. Then we're going to scroll down just a smidgen, and you're going to find apportionments. We're going to select that. We're going to scroll down. Oops, a little too far. To where it says road maintenance and rehabilitation account. You'll see that there are two bullets here for links. One is for cities and one is for counties. For the purpose of today, I am going to just take us to counties because it's a much smaller list. And as you see, everything is broken down by fiscal year. 24-25 is our current fiscal year. So again, this is when you've just started receiving these funds. If you received initial eligibility, subsequent eligibility, you'll start receiving these funds in November. 23-24 is the one that you want to look at for this reporting. You're going to hit where it says allocation year to date. That's what you would be selecting. I've already selected that. It will allow you to download the Excel spreadsheet. And as you see here, the very first month that it shows that you were recorded to receive funds for that fiscal year is September of 2023. And then if we scroll all the way down, the last month is August. There's a total of 12 months here. So it is the full fiscal year. And then your totals are down below or on the far right column. So you have all of this information there. It's really vital that you do accurately represent this information in your report, because this lets us know how much you potentially could be saying that you're spending in any given year of receipt. And then also make sure that you're sharing this with your finance team as you're doing the report, to make sure that you guys have the same numbers, not only as what was apportioned to you, but also the same amount that you're saying that you spent in armory funds for the fiscal year. So for the terminology that we use, and I just want to be very clear, there's a reason why we're using specific terminology. Completed for the purpose of the program, as it states in our guidelines, as well as the reporting guidance that we provide, is that it's projects that were completed in the fiscal year, meaning all invoiceable work construction must have been done by June 30th, excluding the final closeout, meaning it's open for use, it's open to the public, you have no major work left to be done. You may just have the closeout, maintenance, or landscaping kind of portions to tidy up or maintain in order for your final closeout of the contract. And so you technically can provide it as complete, report it as completed. And then in subsequent years, you would go back. If more armory funds were spent during the closeout period, you would actually go back and you could add that funding in there onto that project and say more armory funds were in fact spent in the subsequent year. And that's fine. And progress just means that it was active within the fiscal year and it did not complete or was not able to be reported as completed by the June 30th deadline or prior to July 1st, right? Carried over means it wasn't active at all in the fiscal year, but it is intended to be active in the upcoming fiscal year, which in this case is the 24-25 year. Forecasted means it wouldn't be taking place now until the 25-26 fiscal year. So this happens a lot where we do see, again, people who are jurisdictions who have to reserve funding for multiple years in order to deliver a project. And so they'll see the same project with no activity on it for multiple years until they've accrued enough in funding in order to be able to start spending and have an active project. And then we have no longer RMRA funded, which pretty simple. Projects that will not utilize the RMRA funds as previously intended, or they've been canceled altogether. There are a couple of different project examples that we can provide in here. There are screenshots, so if you need to know the scenarios in which this potentially could occur. This is a project in this case that was active within the reporting fiscal year, but it did not complete. The project incurred costs within the fiscal year to be paid with RMRA funds. The project was invoiced for that work that occurred within the fiscal year, but the funds may not have been paid until after the fiscal year closed. And so in this, the detail that you're capturing, basic detail that you're capturing. In progress is going to be the reporting status or project status that you provide. The project start date must fall within that fiscal year if it's the first time that it's becoming active, right? And the estimated completion schedule, that completion date must fall after the reporting fiscal year. It could be as simple as it being like July 7th of 2024 would have been its completion date, right? But that's where you still need to report it as completed. Or not completed, but in progress. The estimated total cost, this is all funding sources for that project. We know that RMRA only makes up a very small portion of what is actually funding these projects. You're using several different funding sources, may it be your general fund, certain measures, bonds, whatever it is. This is something that RMRA is just contributing to the delivery of. It is 9 times out of 10 not solely funding the entire thing. And so we want to see, how much does it actually cost for you to do this project? And of that amount, how much did RMRA assist with, right? How much were you able to use for or put RMRA towards it? The funds expended based on invoiced work from July 1 to June 30th. So again, it's just what were you invoiced, whether you paid it after the June 30th date, no big deal. But if it was invoiceable work that occurred within the activity window, you need to capture that and then report that expenditure amount. If RMRA was used. And then this last bullet, I like to ignore it because I do not encourage you to do it, but there are some jurisdictions who they were very adamant and requested to have this. And so it's something that they need for them personally and how they operate. It can cause a lot of problems if this isn't really how you're tracking things and it's not what you're doing. So I strongly encourage you not to do it if you're not sure. But this is the future fiscal year RMRA funds dedicated. So this just means that you know that you're using a specific amount in the upcoming year, or you advanced a project using other funds that you're going to reimburse using your RMRA in the upcoming year because you haven't received those RMRA funds yet. And so you're borrowing against your future fund, essentially. If you do that, that's fine, but just be careful how you're reporting it and make sure that you're accurately tracking it because it can cause a lot of problems through the system for the reporting aspect, and it can get rather confusing. So again, complete. This one's really simple. I'm not going to really go into it, but when and why would you report a completed project? Another one in here is that the project started on July 1 of the current fiscal year, meaning the one that you're currently reporting on, but it was awarded in April 16 of the reporting fiscal year. This is a really good one because you had no invoiceable work that started within the fiscal year. And so I would recommend that in that case, you would report it as carried over because the project hadn't started yet, right? Within the reporting year. If you show that or report that this project actually started in April because that's when it was awarded, but you didn't start for another 4 months or whatever it was, and then it's after the reporting period, that can cause a problem, especially because this is a public facing report. And if that information doesn't align, I assure you people do read this report. And then the next thing we know, they are calling in saying that that's not what happened. I live there. I live on that street. That project didn't take place yet. So then they start thinking that we're misusing the funds or you're not accurately reporting or misguiding people. Yeah, so that's why I would do that as carried over. And then here are just all the areas that of data that we collect, which I'm not going to go into, detail, but here's the snapshot of it. I truly, truly do recommend and hope that you are saving this screen as well, or using this and bookmarking this in your handouts, because this just kind of lets you know what to prepare for of what we will be asking you as you're going into the reporting period. But again, the project component will change some of the amount of detail that you're providing us or type of detail that you're providing us to an extent. So when I say project component, that's construction, pre-construction, and procurement operational needs. And if you have questions about what that means, we can get into that further. We also have our guidance that provides a lot of clarity on that as well, and gives you different examples of what would fall within. So right now, I just want to open it up to any questions if there are. Don't be shy. I'm going to think I did a really good job and everyone is going to be flawless.
Adrian, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you could ask your question.
Will you be sending out a copy of this PowerPoint presentation?
So it should be in the handout right now if you were, or I'm sorry, in the chat. So we're uploading it to the chat again. And you should be able to see it. If you can't, please let me know and we will go ahead and try and get that out as well.
The only thing I'm seeing in the chat is the LSR at catc.ca.gov. Trying to click on it, but it's not.
Yeah, just if you can scroll down, because that's the top, or that's higher up. We just uploaded it. So I don't know if you can scroll in that. If not, it is also in CalSmart and we will send it out. There's also going to be a recording of this.
Yeah, I'm on a cell phone in the chat and it's not letting me scroll.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that's the only thing I'm saying. Sorry.
Oh, nope, not a problem. So that would be probably why. Yeah, it's available in CalSmart as well. But when we do our follow-ups and send out the broadcast, we'll definitely make sure the handouts are also included in there. Someone did ask if I could walk them through how I downloaded the state controller's information for the allocation amounts. So if you just select there where it said year to date, when you're in the allocation link, and then it'll just come up as a download and it's just a downloadable file, and you'll select open file. And then that's what comes up for you. All right, and then someone does want to know what I'm referring to when I talk about the components. So one of the things that we have, and I'll come in here into our local streets and roads website on the CTC. Probably one of my more favorite straightforward guides that I think really does help everybody across the board is our eligibility checklist. If I can get it to download, there we go. And in that eligibility checklist, we do go over defining the components pretty in depth. And so construction just means like, is this a construction project? You can, if you're performing it with your own labor force, potentially you can identify it still as a construction project. But it's, are you performing construction asset work, right? Road work. And then the other thing, oops, not now, please. Okay. The other thing that we have is pre-construction. And so for in the most general sense of the term, the pre-construction that we're referring to is this is the work prior to you beginning the actual construction project. So this is going to be the type of work that you're doing in design, environmental, through your selection process, it's your PAED, your PS&E. So it's all of that portion, right? And then I do know that in local public works, very different. It's sometimes you guys are using pre-construction to define the project management aspect of it, oversight, or even site prep work that goes on throughout with your own labor force prior to a contract or construction work starting, right? A project starting. And so with that, we understand that that's how you defined pre-construction. We do try and make it, or some of you define it that way. And so that we do try and make it pretty universal across the board. One of the problems that we have is in this program, it was originally assumed, I think, by like the general public and even possibly the legislature, that everything that was going to be done in this was construction and construction only. And over time, we were able to identify that and further clarification, we were able to identify that that's not the case, that a lot of the work that is going on in this particular program is going to be both, I don't know what's going on, is both, I can't find it, is both pre-construction and construction, but also you're doing stuff that's like procurement operational needs. So that can mean your own labor forces. That can mean paying your own labor forces to do, simple pothole street repairs, street sweeping, whatever that type of work could be. And so you can go through all of that and actually categorize it that way. Also, the other thing is like equipment, materials, service to your equipment, rental of equipment when you're performing the work for the public roads needs. That's all technically considered eligible level work. And so that's why we are able to and ask that you define where you're spending the money. If you're not using your armory funds for the pre-construction, then you don't need to identify that. But if you are, then you want to go ahead and make sure that that's something that you're identifying, especially when the pre-construction efforts that you're funding, let's say, are 6 months or even a year ahead of schedule of the actual construction or contract work that's going to be done. We don't want it going out to the public saying, oh, it's all looking like it's construction. We're spending all this money on this project, but the general member of your public and constituency, they do not understand that there is a pre-construction element that has to be done prior to the actual construction work going on. And when they see that a project is active, but they don't actually see the aspect of they don't actually see that project going on, that's where you see the problems coming up, and that's where people get very confused. And may I just remind you, there are links to everything I'm showing you in this handout or in this presentation. Also, everything I'm providing you is also on our website or within the CalSmart Help and Resources tab. So, please, you can have access to these documents at any time. You don't have to wait for us to be able to send them to you outside of this training. And we can't necessarily get into our personal, or not our personal, but our work emails while we're also maneuvering through the training as well. So we do ask for your patience in that way. Are there any other questions before we move on? All right, quiet after lunch. Everybody is full and happy. I like that. So now we're going to get into CalSmart. Again, reminder, CalSmart is our only reporting tool, as well as the eligibility tool that's accepted. CalSmart stands for the California State Multimodal Application and Reporting Tool. We're actually going to go over how to register into CalSmart, and because I do know that there are a lot of new members within the local agencies that are now doing the local streets and roads reporting. And so we want to make sure that they have adequate access to everything and understand what they're getting into. So we're going to get into that and help you get them onboarded as well. So if not registered, you want to go to the CalSmart website to create an account. Again, that link is embedded right here. You can also go to our website under CalSmart, in the local streets and roads page for the CTC. If you get in there, the program page, that will actually take you to the CalSmart resources tool, and the link is in there as well. So it'll take you directly to the site. One great thing about CalSmart is that multiple people in your agency can have access to the system. You're not sharing an email, you're not sharing a password, you're creating your own profile and registering on your own every time. But caveat to that, one person cannot have access to multiple jurisdictions. So for those of you who are consultants that are doing the reporting on behalf of an agency, you do need to know that. So CalSmart navigation, just to get you started and get you logged in, this is what that front page when you first go to the CalSmart link looks like. You're going to use a valid email and an eligible password in order to register if you have not yet registered. And so that's what you would do. If you have already registered and you're in the system, cannot stress it enough, the system locks after 3 failed attempts. If you hit your second attempt and it does not work, please just stop and hit forget password or forgot password and reset your password. If you do not do this, the system automatically locks you out. We don't have a way of knowing that unless you notify us. And a lot of times this happens right during the thick of everything. We're bogged down with emails and phone calls. It is very likely we may miss or be delayed in being able to see and respond to you. And that can, hinder your ability to get into the reporting. We don't want that to happen. But again, try to avoid it to the best of your ability. But if it does happen, notify us via email, and then we can go into the system and unlock you. This is what the registration tab looks like once you're in. So again, you're just putting in your first, last name, email, contact number, your title, and then the agency that you are with specifically. If you are not a part of any of the other programs identified in this area, so the programs that are listed, Local Streets and Roads Program, State of Good Repair Program, other SB1 funded programs, which is Active Transportation, the SHOP, Local Partnership, Solutions for Congested Corridor, or the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. And then something else we have, which is an electronic project programming request, which is directly related to the other SB1 funded programs. If you do not currently have any role in the reporting of those things or applying for any of those things on behalf of your jurisdiction, please, whatever you do, do not select that. Only select Local Streets and Roads Funding Program. If you select the others, you will get notified for things that you have nothing to do with. You inherently, very likely, will accidentally get into the wrong system and create a file that didn't need to be created. You'll think that you were reporting to us, or we get a lot of freak out phone calls saying, oh my gosh, everything changed, nothing looks the same anymore. But it's just because they're in the wrong program's reporting site. So please just make sure that you're not doing that unless that's actually what your role is for the other programs as well. So once you have entered in the password, you submit for registration, you will receive a registration email verification. If you do not verify your email by clicking the link that's provided in that email, If you don't verify your email address by doing that, we will never get your request and we cannot provide you access. So that has to be done in order for us to get into the system, be notified and get into the system and grant you access. So just make sure that you have done that. If it within a minute or two, it doesn't appear in your inbox, then, let us know, because then maybe something happened or you have some sort of spam blocker, or your system, your server blocks it. Because that has happened in the past and we've had to work with people to get that fixed. And then once you've verified it and we've approved it, you will go ahead and get another email that says, hey, we've approved you. So, again, if you do have issues or something happens, just let us know and we will work with you on it. Megan, if you wouldn't mind sending an email directly to Local Streets and Roads and forwarding that verification email to us, that would help tremendously. And then we can work with the IT folks if there's an issue that we can't fix on our own. But we won't be able to do that until after today's training. I am sorry about that. Um, so now we're going to get into our CalSmart Live presentation. Oh, that's not it. Before I get into that CalSmart Live presentation, one last time, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to assist right now before we get in, because we are a little bit ahead of schedule since you're all very quiet. All right. So now I'm going to go into, this is our test site. So please just know this is not 100% what you'll see. This is the test site. I save all my information, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit login after I've entered in everything. And then this is automatically what comes up. What you would not see is this attention banner that says it's a test site. One thing I do kind of want to warn everybody really quickly is that the test site was under construction earlier this week, and somebody was messing with something on the back end. And so it's not the live site that this happened in, which we're very grateful for. But all the functions may not work perfectly right now in the test site. We hope it will. We hope we've worked out the kinks, but if not, I just want to make sure that you're all aware of that. And we do have some backups to kind of assist us and go over what maybe isn't working in the system. So when you have successfully logged on, this is what you see. You have a little grid up here that says dashboard. It's a tab for you to use. Users, that's just identifying you and your profile. You want to make sure it's your name and then what agency you're representing. And it's the right agency that you're supposed to be representing when you log in. So in the dashboard, you see here, again, another tab down here that says my profile. And then there's the help and resources tab. If you were to select this tab right now, I don't really think you'd see anything because it's just a general sort of dead tab that's in there. But if you come here to current programs, so this is the program within the system that you want to work in, you're going to select Local Streets and Roads program. And what you'll see here is that the system is telling you that it's open, currently accepting reports, and it's going to be open until December 1st. Something I want to correct in there is that we're actually going to have it open until December 2nd because of the Thanksgiving holiday and the fact that December 1st falls on a Sunday. We're going to push it back at least a little until December 1st at the very least, but it is something to be mindful for all of you. Historically, in the last 4 days of eligible reporting period, timeline is when we receive over half, so roughly about 270 of the reports come in the final 4 days of the reporting period. This is going to be very difficult for you guys to do because of the holiday and where it's falling. So just kind of keep that in mind and make sure that you are ahead of it. This is another reason why we have it open so early this year and we're doing our training early. So before getting into expenditure reporting, which you see here in this icon in this tab is expenditure reporting, I recommend if you need to go to the help and resources tab. And this is where you'll see, you know, the information that gets uploaded for you. In there, we have our quick guide for expenditure reporting. This will walk you through step-by-step reporting screenshots of every aspect of what you're doing. In addition to that, you will also have, it'll kind of give you like workarounds in case you make an error and help you find your way back out of that in case there's a problem. So it's really a navigation tool for you. And then we have the copy of the handouts for the technical training. This is for last year's because it's in the test system, but you know, it's something that's really critical. And do we still have this on the live site? And then we do still have the outputs and outcomes assistance. This is for when you're doing the reporting on a completed project. And so this just kind of provides you guidance of what you want to put in here to keep track of what you're doing. And it's broken down by component. So what kind of outputs and outcomes you would provide. Again, this is only for a completed project and it's all broken down by component. So construction, pre-construction, you'll see everything is different. And then procurement, operational need. So there's 3 tabs in there and it's showing you everything that falls within that. So that is, again, a really good resource for you to have. So all of these things are available to you within the Help and Resources tab on CalSmart. We try and make it a one-stop shop. So back to the dashboard. Before you start, this is what I would recommend to do because you want to start gathering all your data before you start entering anything. So you're going to select the fiscal year. I will go back because I know sometimes it's hard to see on here. I should have made my mouse a different color. But so fiscal year proposed project list submittals, this is what you want to select to get your data from the prior or for the reporting proposed project list year. Because this is everything that you still have to update, right? So instead of manage, you want to go to view proposed projects. You want to come over here where it's the filter projects. You want to go down to cycles. And we're going to hit, this one is for 23, 24. We're going to hit apply. And once we hit apply, you're going to see all the projects that you had put in there. Just please note that when you export it, if you did delete a project while you were creating your list, it is still going to show up. So just make sure to remove that when you export it all out so that you know what you need to update. So then once you've done all of this, you're going to hit down at the bottom left corner, export list to Excel. That will then generate your proposed project list for download. And then this kind of lets you know, and this is what I actually really appreciate for all of you, because I think it's a good tool, is here are your project titles and you get to know, is this a project that I was already working on? Is this a project I've already reported on? You have little hints in there. The project titles are available. So, you know, if it was something that was already included in an expenditure report before, and so you relisted it, it's coming in here. We're tracking all of that data, and it's for you to help keep track of what you last put in. So there's that. So you want to keep that. And then the next one that you want to pull up. So now we're done with the proposed project list from the current reporting year that you're going to be doing your expenditure reporting on. So 23, 24. We're going to come back. You can go either dashboard, submittals, or reporting for the purposes of navigation right now. I'm going to select reporting. I am not going to select create expenditure report. Not yet. I'm going to move over, skip manage, and I'm going to go directly to view report, just like we did for the submittal side. Again, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select the 22-23 expenditure report, select apply, and then I'm going to export this. And then once that opens up, what I like to do is go through and see where my information matches, compare my list, and say, okay, what do I have that showed up on my proposed list for 23-24 that was also included in my 22-23 expenditure list? And group those together so that you know, okay, these are together. I should not be creating two records for this in this time's expenditure reporting. It's going to help you determine how you select things moving forward and what data you need to update. So kind of preparation really does help to make it go smooth. So now I'm back to the reporting field by up here again on the top right, dashboard submittals reporting. I selected reporting. And now I'm going to select create expenditure report. Once I do that, all of my information starts coming up. Everything that I want in there, make sure my agency contact number, all of that are the same. And now this is where I'm going to utilize the information that was provided to me in from the state controller's website with that Excel spreadsheet that showed the apportionments for the fiscal year. Also, I can go back in to my submittal from 23-24 and look at what my resolution said that my original arm rate estimate was. Or, you know, internally, if you have that record, you can pull that record there. If you cannot find that record internally, I do suggest you go into your submittals tab under manage submittals, and you'll look up that information because you uploaded your resolution there. So you have access to it. And the information's likely in there as well. So what I am going to do now is just start inputting this information in based on what our sample has. And then as you see in here, we do break it down by what was received from September to June. Again, because that's technical. You know, it gets very confusing for a lot of people to think that they have to count the money only from September to June, or revenues that they received, the apportionments that they received only from September to June or September to August, because all of that does not fall within the traditional fiscal year, state fiscal year. But it is the revenues that we are supposed to be, or apportionments that we are supposed to be accounting for. So we do break it down into two entries in that sense. And so what you see here to the far right column, the columns or sections, is that we have with and without interest, or without and with interest. I'm currently sitting in the fiscal year interest accrued area. If your current apportionment that you received in the fiscal year, if interest is tracked by the year in which your revenues were received, so essentially you're counting them separately, right? Your remaining revenues are, that interest is counted a little different or tracked differently. That may happen. We have a couple of jurisdictions that do it that way. So you would independently put that information in here. Again, you are to report to us how interest is used, because it must align with the eligible uses for the funding, right? It's from a specific source, so therefore it must be utilized accordingly. So for this, I'm just going to say no, no interest in the current fiscal year, or for the current fiscal year funds that were received. But based on the remaining amount that is in there, I'm going to say, you know, it's 150. And so when I do that, what you will see is my numbers up here on the top one for funding fiscal year 23-24 did not change. But when I come down here to the combined amount for 22-23, which essentially just means this is all the funds that were remaining at the end of your 22-23 fiscal year based on your report, right? It could be the funds that first started in 2017-18 that you've carried all the way into this year, but it's just based on the last update we received in 22-23, this is where we're at. And so this is the combined total. People are asking, how do you know the interest accrued amount? That is going to be a conversation for you in your finance department. It should be tracked by your individual finance team, and so you would have to discuss that with them. I unfortunately can't answer that question. We just know that we are asked to make sure that it is being tracked and reported on in accordance. So yeah, so here are the amounts that it's saying that you have in total with and without interest. And then we come down here and we have our costs. This is where you are going, to go ahead and enter in the amount that you're saying you spent in the fiscal year. Okay, before I move on, I do want to address something that just came through. So we just got a question in regards to this particular column about us saying the fiscal year apportionments that were received from September 2023 to June 2024. Those are received in the current reporting fiscal year, right? It's within that reporting year. There is a delay from the time that the revenues, so the tax sales, the gas is sold in July. All the revenues from that come in, get rectified throughout like the month of August. And we hope by the month of the end of August, early September, those funds have fully been rectified. Formula has been applied, and then the apportionments start getting dispersed to all of you accordingly. So the very first payment for the fiscal year that you would receive is September, but they're July's funds or July's revenue sales. Okay, sales revenues. So that is considered July. That's the current fiscal year. The money comes from July, but you're just not receiving it until September. That's why we have a separate section for July and August, because again, it's just hard to process it. So if we break it down to two, it's a little bit easier. So then if you look at specifically what you receive from RMRA from July to August, that's where you will find the remaining amount, right? And a good rule of thumb too is that on average, your estimated amount that you received when you did your proposed project list is always a little less than what you actually receive throughout the course of the year. But it's never less. I can't say never, but 9 times out of 10, it is not less than what you received from September to June. So if you look at those two together, right? If you look at your original estimate and you look at what you received from September to June and you say, oh, wow, that's less than my original estimate, something must be wrong. We must be missing a couple of months of our apportionment, formulaic apportionment that we need to count for. That's where you're going to say, oh, that's right. I need to make sure that I go ahead and add the July and August apportionments in there, because now I have my full fiscal year revenues. Those are the sales revenues that occurred. They just get to you in a delay, but it's still for that fiscal year. And so that's why you count it accordingly. Of course, you're very welcome. It's a great question. So in here, we come down, accrued RMA costs expended in the reporting year. This is where I want to say how much I spent. Please note the system has a safeguard in it that if you attempt to report that you spent more than this box right here, that is your total amount combined, right? Your highest dollar amount, total amount combined. If it says that if you enter in an amount that exceeds that, let's say 408,704.59 cents, the system automatically is going to shoot you an error and say, no, you can't do that. You can't say that you spent more than what you actually have recorded as received, right? Or available to you. So that's a safeguard that we worked into there as well. So I'm just going to say that we did about 200,000. And now I'm going to walk away. Don't hit this plus sign. I wish I could disable all of these things, and I can't because some people do use it. If you are someone who in your jurisdiction, your process is because you advance projects by borrowing against future years funds, and you have a super dialed in system for tracking this and it's like never wrong, go ahead and do it. I say the risk is not worth it. If that's not like something that you can 100% guarantee, because adding in the additional future forecasted funds that you're saying that you're going to reimburse yourself because you're advancing a project, or other source funds from, it just becomes very, very complicated and leads to a lot of errors. So I just recommend that you don't do it unless it's something specifically that like your jurisdiction has dialed in. Do you need to provide your average network PCI? In our guidelines, it does explain in what situation you would need to provide that, and it's very specific, and it's really only to those of you who have an average network paving index of 80 or above. If you don't have that, it really doesn't apply to you. Do you need to select files to upload? No. Is it a great idea to do so? We love it. You can do before and after pictures. You can provide, any sort of like reporting that you also have available to you that you would like to provide as a sort of support data, but it's not required. It's definitely not needed. And then for your summary. In the summary, this is where you just are going to let us know what happened. So again, we get a lot of really great questions of, the city had to reserve funding for fiscal year 24, 25, and no armory funds were spent. And reporting error. Although 2 projects were active and will have armory funds reported on them. Something I really want to make sure that I stress to you, if you are not actually using armory funds on the projects that you are reporting on, and you won't be using armory funds on the projects that for some reason were proposed, listed, whatever, remove them. Don't continue to report on them. You're honestly causing yourself more work, and then it also raises more issues, especially to the legislature and the public, as to why are you reporting these in an RMRA, local streets and roads report, when you're not using RMRA funds on it, because that's what it's for. Okay. If you are delaying your use of funds on a specific project because you're accruing those funds, that's a different ballgame. But if you know that you're no longer using RMRA funds on it, just don't continue to report on it. Call it no longer RMRA funded and move on. Okay. This is also where you're going to let us know, this is how much we spent. We had to add 2 new projects because we had changes of priority, whatever. But again, it just really lets us have a picture of what to expect as we review, especially because it's very rare that we have, I would say like a quarter of you probably give us 2 or 3 projects to review every time, while the majority of you give us anywhere from like 20 to hundreds of projects. that we're reviewing in every report. So it's depending on the size and how much funding you're getting. So it's really quite a task, and that summary helps a lot. It also helped us when we were doing our our reporting to when we were audited by the legislature. And I will say this again, as the commission was audited and the program was audited for our role in this program, the cities who were interviewed and audited, as well as the commission, we had, you know, the response to our work and what we did and what we continue to do was really well received, and no issues were found. And so we do believe in what we're doing and the success of it. And you guys are doing a great job. So that's why we continue to do these trainings. So again, I'm going to let you know right now that this is not showing up the way it's supposed to because of the error in the test site. I was hoping it was just like one city maybe would have been affected, or one of our records would have been affected, but it's all of them. So what you should be seeing on this screen, and I'm going to see if I can pull it up. What you should be seeing on this screen right away is actually not just the completed projects and expenditure reporting projects, but you would see a couple of other things. Like there'd be a why do I report and when do I report on these things that come up, and then it leads us to the proposed project list from 23-24 accurately. But I'm going to walk you through this part, and then we'll go and I'll show you how it's supposed to look. So 22-23 completed projects. If you are not adding that you spent additional RMRA funds on a project previously reported as completed in the last fiscal year, please, whatever you do, do not select it. Do not update it. Do not select it. Do not do anything with it unless you are adding additional funds to it, because you said, oh, we spent more RMRA funds on it during our closeout period, and you know, we got some late addition invoices that came in that we needed to rectify. That's fine. But if that is not the case, like don't select it, skip it, you're good. The expenditure report projects that you see here, this is what is considered ongoing or in progress, carried over, anything that was remaining and didn't show up as completed or no longer RMRA funded on last year's expenditure report. That's what's going to show up in this list. And you need to account for all of them, right? So we're going to hit update when we get to it. And then, oh, here you go. It showed up. It actually worked. And then what you see, once you selected update, as you see here, it says you selected fiscal year 22-23 expenditure report project. Here's all the project detail that it shows you right here, which is the title, description, and pre-construction. And then you're going to come down here to the proposed list, and you're going to see, do you have that project also listed in your proposed project list for 23-24? And as I come down, I have Edwards, I have Avenue P, I have the fiscal year 2021 road rehabilitation project list. I'm going to come back up here. Oh, yep, Avenue P and 15th. That's right. This is what I've got. Street East, got it. I'm going to select that. Once I have selected that, I'm going to link the project, and then that'll take me into the project detail page. If I do not do that, deselect, and I would just select skip linking proposed project. So let's say this project did not appear on the list below, then I'm not linking it. If I don't need to link it, I'm not going to link it, okay? So for this, we do link. We're going to come down here, select link project. I'm going to go through, look at all my information. Yep, everything looks really good. It's still, we only funded pre-construction. We're not funding the construction, so I don't need to change anything there. Cost estimating, yeah. Feasibility study, nope, nope, oh, preliminary design, that's what we did. Okay, great. I don't need to change anything there. All my other information is great, and because it is pre-construction, I have the ability to identify it as citywide because a lot of times during the pre-construction, locations haven't been finalized, or even identified, and depending on what it is. But because this one technically has locations in the title, you would give specific locations. But again, we're just giving you all of your options during this training to kind of let you know what you could do given the different scenarios. But if any of that changed, this is where you would just make your changes. You would just edit it and say, not same as title. I'm just doing this for me. Just because I'm doing it right now doesn't mean it's the way it's supposed to be. Same as title. So just pretend I copied and pasted the title and put it in here for my location. Because the project is not currently in construction, I'm just going to say it's to be determined if we're going to use any of our sort of additional elements that are potential for use. And so this one isn't working right now then. That's unfortunate. But on the live, you can get into, or if you hover over these question marks where it talks about additional elements, it gives you a breakdown of what the examples of the additional elements are. Over here, you can see the status and expenditure detail that was reported last year. Don't touch that unless you just want to look at it, but it can cause little hiccups in the system where it can time out. So you did identify it as pre-construction in progress, and this is how much you said that you spent last year was $25,000. Here you can see all the places it was linked. It originated in the 22-23 list of proposed projects. You relisted it in 23-24, so we've linked it all together, and now it's good to go. If you linked something incorrectly and you didn't mean to link it, there is an undo option, and you would undo it and it would send it back to the original location it was in and remove it from the input. So now I hit save and continue at the bottom of the page, and that's going to take me to the actual project detail page and cost. So what we have here, again, I spent $25,000. It's pre-construction in progress. For this purpose of this, I'm going to call it now completed. I'm going to say that we spent another $50,000 on the project. And as you see, that comes in here for the total armory expenditure activity. Again, future fiscal year information that you would be putting in, that's for reimbursement, expenditure for reimbursement. It's something that's allowed. Again, I just highly encourage you to skip it if possible, if you're not one of the very few jurisdictions where this is something that is regularly done. And they have a record keeping system dialed in to ensure that they've tracked it appropriately. So the start date, I cannot change start date. It doesn't matter because it's already been recorded as the start date, so I cannot change it from the prior year. So the original project cost for this, we're just going to say this original project cost was $500,000. And the total project cost ended up by being $500,000, right? Your total project cost that you identify should never be less than the RMRA amount that you have said that you've reported. Ideally, it should be quite a bit more than your RMRA amount that you're reporting that you've used on any given project, because again, this is a tool to help aid and deliver projects. The likelihood of it fully funding multiple projects in jurisdictions is very, very slim. It is a good chunk of change, but it is not enough to do that. You're still needing to use your general fund as per a requirement of the program and maintenance of effort. You have to do that. And then you have other local measures that maybe you have that allow you to use the fund, special funding that maybe you've received that can all be used, that need to be utilized throughout a given year. So the likelihood of it being solely sourced by Armory is slim. So then the completion date that comes up, the completion date, of course, has to fall within the reporting fiscal year. What you will see here is there is no way for you to go past June of 2024. So that means it had to finish within the reporting fiscal year. And for me, I'm going to say if it started in May of 2023, I'm going to say we finished it in February of 2024. And then we come down and now we have our project outputs outcomes. So this is where you're going to identify like if the pre-construction activity reported is for more than just one project, you want to identify the number of projects or potential projects. So a lot of times we see this with like feasibility studies, plan development, stuff like that. Where the funds are used, that's where it's going to identify that it's for more than one project usually. The different types of outcomes that you could identify. So was it for a project that will utilize RMRA funding in its construction delivery? In this case, I'm not going to select that because, you know, ideally, well, no, it very well could, but if it's using RMRA funds, we usually like to see both the pre-construction and construction elements being reported on, or give us an indication of when we see that. So was it a component activity for the rehab repair of an existing pavement or structure? You know, a lot of times that is what is it's going to be for. Or was it for a new improvement installation? Is it for both? And so I'm just going to say it was for both. It's environmental cost estimating. So I'm going to select those because those align directly with a preliminary design. It also had our scope development and document prep for the contract was a part of it. You know, and then if whatever you did and you were able to advance a project by a certain number of years, you can add that in there as well. This is just for what we used in last year's training. So I'm going to remove that from the additional information element from the last page because it's not necessary. And so now I've selected everything. I'm going to hit save and continue. Once I've done that, it automatically takes me back to the project reporting page. And now you see, other than the completed projects from the prior expenditure reporting, the prior expenditure report list is gone, right? Because we've already accounted for that. I already said I'm not going to add any additional information or funds spent on a completed project from a prior year. So I'm good to go. I am going to select this particular project and say I want to report on it, right? Or I want to split it, or do I want to remove it as no longer Armory funded? If I select more than one, I get this option that says consolidate. Do not consolidate the project. Do not group the project unless it actually has to be grouped. If it's being delivered under the same contract, like if you group them all together, we try and make it easy, but it also only takes the lead project's main information. So you have a lot more information that you have to then update. So I'm going to deselect that. I'm not splitting the project. I don't need to. It wasn't broken into a smaller sub project. But for this one, I'm going to say this particular project is no longer going to be Armory funded. So I'm going to go through here. No need for me to address any of these things in here, except for that little part. Something that is going on in this test site is that the project descriptions are not, oh, there we go. It actually did come through this time. Okay. So they're all still in there. The project may still very well, this is what the project outlined, all of that. I'm going to change this from yes to no, or even to be determined, you know, because again, we're not delivering this project with Armory, so you don't need to provide a bunch of detail. We're going to go to save and complete at the bottom. because it's no longer RMRA funded, you're gonna see that there's no schedule information for you to input, nothing. There's just an additional information tab. And most commonly, a reason for a project to no longer be considered RMRA funded is other funding sources were identified. The RMRA originally intended for this project has been reallocated. And that's it. And then you can hit save and continue. And now we're back to our final project, okay? There's one left. If you got out of this and tried to go and submit, it would not let you. It would tell you that you haven't accounted for all your projects. So I don't want to do that. I'm just going to hit report. And so this is a construction project. I see all of the things. Are there any additional description things that I want to add in or select on the box? I definitely could if I wanted to. And I would want to identify that to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. There we go. There we go. If there was a location change on this, I would say, additional locations were added. So I'm adding that in now. And I would, let's just say, Lakeside neighborhood. From 4 points to Lakeport. So we just added in more location information, right? Because you may have added in some location details. So now I'm going to hit save and continue. And now I want to go to priority status. And for this, I'm going to say that we have completed this project, okay? And again, nothing was put in there, but I am going to say that we spent another, what did I say last time, 15? Another 50,000 on this project. So now that brings us up to what, 100,000 that I said of RMRA funds. Trying to remember what I put in originally on the front page. So now I'm scrolling down. And for my project start date, I'm going to say that we started it in, nope, can't be that. There we go. So I'm going to say we started it, let's say August of 2023. And we completed it in June 2024. The original estimate was $1 million. And the total project cost combined was actually, let's say, 1.5 million, right? If you want to add additional information about the other funds that were used, you can definitely identify them there. A lot of people do like to do that to be able to provide a little insight of the other funding types that are used to deliver these projects. So total miles, we're going to say 4. And this is, as you see, it says maintenance rehabilitation. We're going to say that the number of curb ramps we did was 4 for rehab repair. And then we're going to come down here and come to the new. So we have the construction new improvements. And I want to say that we did an additional 10 new ADA compliant curb ramps. So something that you should know is that since this is a rehab and repair program, the funding is to be prioritized on the rehab, the repair, deferred maintenance. The likelihood of you having all new assets that you reported on is going to be few and far between, whereas you making your repairs and it just being existing work that has been rehabbed is far more likely. But we do see new installations like roundabouts being installed, like new light signals, a new stop sign, new sidewalks. A lot of that is very consistent with us finding those things. Plus like new landscaping that was put in for like a safety barrier, right? We definitely have that. And then you can add in any sort of additional information that you would like, should you need to, and then we're going to hit save and continue. So now I have linked to everything. I'm good. I've noticed that all my boxes are checked. There's nothing left for me to do. So I'm going to come up here to the reporting tab at the very top. I'm going to select that. I'm going to go to manage expenditure reports. So it's the one right smack dab in the middle. And what I see here at the very top is this little yellow triangle. I'm going to make sure that that's kind of grayed out because that's how I know this is the one that I'm in. This is the report I still need to submit. So I just wanted to remind myself, I did put in there that there were 200,000 of RMRA funds spent. So I'm going to come down and expand. I hit that. So watch again on your right-hand side, middle of the page. That collapses it. This expands it. And so this is where I can see everything that I've put in there. If I wasn't thinking about it and I just said, okay, yep, those are the 3 projects I reported on. Oh, yep, 50,000. That's the right statuses. We're good. I'm good to go. I would then put it back down and I would select submit. But I'd get these error notices because my total amount expended plus the project amounts that I put in of RMRA spent do not align. They do not match. So I'm not going to be able to submit. So I'm like, oh, what did I do? Well, I could select project reporting, but I see in here everything's been accounted for, right? I've already done it and I'm not adding anything to a previously completed project. So I'll go back to the reporting, hit manage again, and I'm going to go, oh, that's right. We forgot to add the project that wasn't previously adopted, wasn't, in an expenditure report before. It's a new priority. Oftentimes what we see you guys have done is you've added that new priority to your, the current one that we're in, like let's say 24, 25. That project may have appeared in your proposed project list, but it actually became active and you decided to use funds on it in the prior fiscal year. And so, you're always playing catch up a little bit. And so that very well can happen and it is super common. So we're going to say it is the fiscal year 23-24 citywide pavement. This is for fun, road maintenance. But what I'm going to do, just to give you an idea of what it looks like when you do it, is the procurement operational needs. And so what I really love is that when we show you this, it gives you an idea of everything that you could potentially use and identify as a procurement operational need, right? Systems, databases, public work staffing. So this is when you're performing the work with your own labor force, the repair and servicing of your equipment, materials, databases, procurement of the databases. So all of that's in there. And so this is where you would really identify those things. And it does make up a good portion of, I would say a little over a quarter of what is selected when identifying funding use. So for this, we're going to say it was the maintenance rehab materials and the staffing. And that's what you used the money for on this project. And I'm just going to go through and call everything 1. And then for project location, a lot of times, because it's procurement operational need, citywide is fine. Because this just means that like this was your team going around and you had a maintenance plan of just like spot checking areas, doing spot repairs, whatever it is. But you didn't have like a major contract that came out for a large scale project, a large scale construction project that you were doing. And so a lot of times that's where we'll see citywide is identified, and that's completely fine. So for this, I'm just going to say no for this one, and then we're going to hit save and continue. And then we're going to go to priority status, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is in progress. And this is where I'm going to say I spent $100,000. So now I know I have my full 200,000 that I said I had reported in the beginning. So you're kind of keeping track as you're putting in to make sure that you don't have any errors on what it is that you're saying that you spent. My project start date, I'll do what I did last time. And so here we go. And actually, this is what I'm going to do. There you go, you got August. And so here is all the information that I've input, and then I added in, the estimated total project cost, so what I estimate for it to be. And if I want to, and I always recommend that you do, provide an explanation that, after removing another project from the list, funds were allocated to the citywide paving project. Not previously proposed. So you just redirected your funding, and you're letting us know that that's why this was added, and so it's a new priority. And you get to do that. It's literally in the guidelines and statute that this is allowed. So now I hit save and continue. Again, it's always going to bring me back to this page once you've done that. So I need to go back to reporting. I need to go back to manage expenditure reports. Making sure I'm the one with the triangle. Yep, I'm good. Expand. Let's make sure all my projects came in there. I now have a total of 200,000 that shows up. I'm going to collapse it, and now I'm going to hit submit. If there are no errors, this is exactly what you will see. And it's going to ask you if you're sure you want to submit it, because once you submit it, you cannot make edits to it. You can't make corrections to it unless we send it back to you per your request. So I'm selecting submit. And as you see, once I've done that, we have a really beautiful little blue clock here that's letting you know that it is under review. Should you need to see or want to see the details of the information that you put in without having to leave the manage page altogether, you can select that eyeball. So as you see where it has all the projects are listed that you just reported on the far right, where you have the money that you say that you spent in RMRA funding, there's a little eyeball, and this is the view icon. And so this is where you can go in without messing with any of your detail, even if you hadn't submitted it yet. You cannot edit, you cannot alter anything that's in here. It's all grayed out and locked up, but you can see everything. You can track everything historically, what you had put in, all the information, just to make sure that you have it all right. And then again, if you needed to, you could request for it to be sent back so that you can make edits if you did submit it too early. And so that concludes our live presentation. And I can go into our frequently asked questions, or I can discuss and cover a couple of questions for you right now, should you have any. I know a lot came through in the Q&A while I was speaking, and our team addressed a lot of things, so I do appreciate that.
Hi, Nancy. You can come off mute and you can ask your question.
Hi, thank you. You had said you do not recommend consolidating projects, but what would you recommend if that's exactly what we did? We combined two projects into one to get a better price for the construction contract.
Oh,
So,
yeah. No. What I said is I don't recommend consolidating just to consolidate them.
oh, okay.
Well,
But that's
if that is what you did,
okay.
we
Fantastic.
definitely want you to do it again.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Saeed, could you please let me know what Excel spreadsheet specifically you're referring to? I think we went through a few of them. Do we have anyone else with their hand raised? All right. So into our frequently asked questions, it never fails, we do get this from folks, which is, if we didn't spend any money in the fiscal year, do I even have to do I have to submit an expenditure report? The answer is yes. You are still responsible for accounting for all the projects that you had previously reported on or proposed. You are responsible for informing us, the legislature and the public, just what is your intention with the funding that you have received or have reserved. So that is actually a part of the transparency and accountability element of the program that you agree to once you started receiving the funds. So again, we have here, if a project was listed in both the prior fiscal year and the reporting fiscal year, project list. So meaning it showed up in your expenditure report, and it's also showing up in your proposed project list for the current reporting year. What do you relist it from? Do you relist it? Will it auto populate? So you want to relist it again first from the expenditure. It'll take you into the proposed project list. You'll select it in proposed project, and then you will link it. And once you have linked it, then you can, the most recent information that was provided, which was from expenditure reporting, will auto populate, and you can just continue to report from there, and everything's being accounted for. And then this just kind of goes into why we link and when it wasn't available prior to. Why are you being asked to record the interest? And this is very specific, and it's because the interest is a direct result of a specific fund source that has very specific spending requirements. And so if you have interest from that fund source, it means it's still that funding source. And in the eyes of the government, that is still the funding source. Therefore, if it is to be spent, it must be spent in accordance to law. How do you want us to report the interest that was accrued? We went over how you would capture that into the system. Now, how your individual finance divisions account for it is a little different, but definitely is something that you need to make sure, if it is being done, that they are accounting for it, providing you that, and then it's being tracked accordingly once spent. If you get out of CalSmart mid-reporting, you didn't finish things, how do you continue project reporting? Once you've gone back to that manage expenditure reporting page and you select the right expenditure report that you're in, so it's the one with the little triangle, you just go to the bottom of the projects that are listed, you'll select that project reporting tab, and it'll just pick it back up to where you can start selecting projects and moving forward and reporting on them again. We keep our HUDA and RMRA funds in the same account. How are we supposed to separate out the interest? on this is the guidance directly from the state controller's office. I do suggest that you provide that. I'm not going to go over it verbatim because again, it's not, this isn't what we do. We are simply capturing the information based on what you have and based on the guidance that is given from the state controllers regarding the finance element of it. We are very specific to the project aspect and just accounting for the armory in general so that we make sure transparency and accountability are being held to as a condition of your continued receipt of the funding. But so they do have a way for you to do that and to make sure that you are accounting for them separately. A project was reported as in progress in the prior fiscal year and has since been completed. Can I report on that, or do I need to create a new project? So again, if the project was not relisted in the reporting fiscal year, skip project linking and you just report on it directly. So this means it showed up in your expenditure reporting, but it didn't show up in your proposed project list. So what do? You just report without linking the project and you continue to go forward. For some reason, I think people see the two and they just automatically think they now have to link a project. And this is where we see projects getting linked that shouldn't be linked. And then someone will contact us and say, I lost a project. I can't find it. It's disappeared. It's not in any of my lists. And we have to dig back to find out where it went. So this is just talking about what you can and cannot do when you're updating information, on a project that was previously in progress or completed. So in progress, you cannot change the original start date that was reported on the project, and you cannot change the amount you said you spent in the prior year, right? Those things are still there. It's really important that you know and do not over-report what you spent until you've confirmed that with your finance team that yes, they coded that spending as RMRA. This is the spend amount for that fiscal year. Here we go. Or that's attributed to that fiscal year. Perfect. Because if you report that you spent more in a specific year than what you actually spent, and then the next year you want to come and correct it with us, it's nearly impossible for us to kind of fix that because it's already been published that you spent this much. It's the system has already recorded it and then adjusted your remaining funding amount by this. So we can't undo that necessarily. And the few times that we've kind of tried to correct it, it has caused a lot of issues in the back end in the system to where it actually messes with the integrity of the overall data going forward. So it can cause a lot of problems. So to the best of your ability, we ask you not to, or to try not to. I'm not going to get too much into this because we've already covered it multiple times, but this is just, again, reminding you that the timeline in which you are apportioned the funds does not necessarily fall within the actual fiscal year itself. It's a little wonky, essentially a 2-month delay. On completed projects, again, everything that you report or that you entered in a completed project, if you're adding additional funds in another year, you can't change anything in that completed project other than adding the additional funds. That's it. And then total project cost. This is a really big one, and we've seen it in huge storm years. And so after the flooding that occurred this past year, I suspect we're going to see it again. A project was delivered using RMRA funds, but the jurisdiction was later reimbursed for emergency repairs due to fire or flood. How can we reflect that? We strongly encourage you, number one, to reach out to us and discuss that on a case by case basis. But what I can say is if there is a limit to the maximum amount that can be reimbursed, so if it's 80% of the project can be reimbursed or costs can be reimbursed, do not report, more than that 20% at the very least. Because you may have fully funded it with RMRA to get it done pending the reimbursement. But once you've got the reimbursement, right, even if they only end up by reimbursing you 50% or 60%, We can add to that later after the reimbursement's all been settled. We cannot undo it and say, oh, never mind, they really only spent 20,000, not 80,000. That's not what really happened. So again, it's just really being cognizant of that factor. Again, we've discussed this about future fiscal years being dedicated. Unless you have like the most impeccable financing and your finance abilities like rarely adjust or change throughout the year. I just reporting on this, how you track it internally is one thing, but public facing reporting on it is kind of another, where it can complicate things if it is not consistent and does not remain that way. So again, just keep that in mind. Here again is where you can find the information for the amount that you received throughout the fiscal year. And I know we have a request to go over the steps on how to get to this again. So I will pull up that website really quickly just to kind of walk you through it. Oh, good golly. There we go. All right. So again, here is the state controller's website. You are on the home page. You are going to select state and local. You are going to then select on your right-hand side, it says we go state government, state departments, local government. You want to select local government. You're going to scroll down, depending on how zoomed in you are on this. You're going to scroll down a little bit and you're going to select apportionments, not reimbursement, but apportionments. Once you have done that, we are going to scroll down on the apportionments page until we find the road maintenance and rehabilitation account links. There will be two, one for cities and one for counties. So it's under recall election and above rural and small county law enforcement, smacked up right there. We're going to go ahead and select, again, I'm going to do counties because it just comes up faster because it's a smaller record. I select that county's link. I'm going to scroll down and I am going to select fiscal year 23-24, not 24-25, not the 22-23, 23-24, because this is my reporting fiscal year that I'm in, or the reporting period that I have to cover. Now I've selected that. You see it says the fiscal year on there. It shows allocation. And I'm going to select the one that says year to date. Once I have selected that, a drop down for downloads is going to come up. I will hit open file. The Excel will then populate, eventually open, and now I have access to it. And I can find my individual jurisdiction, navigate through and see the amounts that I have and, you know, what it's broken down to and what I received every month. And again, these are not reimbursements. These are apportionments. This is fully formulaic. No, all right. So hopefully that answers those questions. And again, everything that we're covering right now is linked in the handouts. So if you haven't gotten the handouts yet or downloaded them or gone into CalSmart and opened them up, you know, please go ahead and do so. Get in there when you can. We'll also be sending a recording of today's training, and we'll send that out once it's ready for posting. And in that, we will send you, you know, a copy of the quick guide, as well as today's handouts so that you can utilize the links and help navigate through everything. And just to find the estimates, you likely are not going to find your original estimate for the prior fiscal year because at this point we're in a new one. So it is kind of backdated, you want to make sure that when you're referring to your original estimate for the fiscal year, just go back to your resolution. You all should be really citing that estimate amount, or most of you do. And so you can pull it from there. And then again, here are some more links for you. If you need any of those, and you can contact us. Division of Audits is a great place to contact if you have a question on like eligibility use of your funding. If something is allowed for RMRA funding use, as well as us, we give you the specifics we can as it's based on RMRA to the best of our ability. But for the most part and in general, like we do mirror a lot of what you're allowed to do under the state controller's office or the gas tax guidance. And that is it for us. If you have more questions, please let us know. We do have a little bit of time to spare if you'd like to ask some specifics and stay on. If not, you guys can reclaim 30 additional minutes in your day, which we always love that. But we're also available via email if you need any assistance. Our general email box is the best way to go about it for the program. I know that we do have some people that were just asking questions about linking to the 24-25 list because they're carrying over projects into 24-25 in the expenditure reporting. You're not touching your 24-25 list as it stands today. You are simply accounting for what you did in the prior fiscal year and what you intend to do in what is now our current fiscal year. By how you identify the status and the schedule themselves. You will have the opportunity during expenditure reporting for next year to update your 24-25 list. So we can't link everything and have them changing constantly, or we wouldn't be able to track it all. But it is a great question and a common question. Of course, my pleasure. Thank you all so much. Again, the Q&A or the chat feature does have a bunch of our handouts and links. Feel free to visit that. I can keep this on for like another 5 minutes or so as you all sort of catch up on anything that you need. And if you have any questions, please raise your hand or go into the Q&A tab, and we will try and answer you before logging off. Thank you all so much for your time, and we look forward to working with you throughout this period. Someone has asked, could I please explain the difference between what is the current year and the reporting year? So the reporting year is your fiscal year that we're reporting in, or for. I'm sorry, the fiscal year we are reporting for. So we are reporting for the fiscal year 23-24 right now. It's always in arrears, right? Like we have to go back, travel back in time and account for all of it, which can become very confusing because we are currently in the 24-25 year. So we are not reporting on anything that is currently occurring in the 24-25 year. We are only reporting on what occurred in what is called the reporting year, which in this case is fiscal year 23-24. So it gets complicated, and I know and a little frustrating, but yeah, so we're playing catch up in that sense. You get a large number of months to sort of rectify your information and pay out your invoices, to be able to then collect all the data and report out to us what's going on. And again, we did align that with the finance effort of the sort of equivalent to this report that goes to the state controller's office. Yes, what you report as of, or what you submit to us in your reports in December, this is just what occurred between July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. And you will have to wait until expenditure reporting for 24-25 to add projects that you're now adding for 24-25. Does that make sense? You're not touching anything that has to do with anything for 24-25 right now. If you added a project in 23-24, that's what you're adding right now. That's what you're putting into your expenditure report right now. That's a new project that was added. But we do not add to our just recently adopted and uploaded submittals that came to us for the 24-25 fiscal year funding eligibility. Thank you all. Again, I really appreciate your time and participation and great questions.